Next, I wanted to give a brief history of the expansion of the cabinet. Until 1849, Treasury, State, Navy, and War stood alone as cabinet-level departments. They were joined that year by the Department of the Interior. This was a major victory for members of Congress from Western states, meaning that more attention would be paid to the issues facing their constituents. This was an example of a cabinet agency being created to serve a specific clientele. The Department of Justice achieved cabinet status in 1879 after Congress, in response to the Civil War, Reconstruction, and industrial growth, expanded the government's role in law enforcement. This was in direct response to resistance towards civil rights that had formed in the post-Civil War era, and a number of labor issues that states were not responding to correctly in the eyes of the federal government. There was a need for standardization and enforcement of state laws, so the federal government stepped in and created a cabinet-level agency to deal with these issues. The next type of agency we're going to talk about is clientele agencies. Clientele agencies like the Departments of Agriculture in 1889, Labor in 1903, and Commerce also in 1903, were created to assist different groups who had emerged as significant players in the economy, allowing the executive branch to serve these new groups and gain the political rewards from doing so. The final type I wanted to speak about are symbolic agencies. The creation of the Departments of Education in 1979 and Veterans Affairs in 1988 were almost entirely symbolic and were largely established for political reasons. Education was created because Jimmy Carter wanted to give a symbolic nod to teachers who had helped him win office. This is why you hear Republicans attempt to abolish the Department of Education. It's become more of a symbol of the power of the teachers' union, which typically supports Democratic politicians, and its very symbolism makes it a bigger target than it otherwise would likely be. However, granting the department cabinet-level status was a significant boost politically to teachers. Similarly, Veterans Affairs was created by President Ronald Reagan as a symbolic gesture to Vietnam veterans and attempted to use the move in an effort to bring veterans to the Republican Party permanently. Neither department came with much in the way of new programs, although both have expanded significantly over time. So, who are these bureaucrats? Well, the book argues that they're not like the stereotypes that exist of the lazy, fat cat government employees sitting around mooching off the taxpayers that exist in the zeitgeist. It describes them as open and active, flexible, skilled, and dedicated. This is probably a bit of an exaggeration, but the reality is that government employees look basically like every other office out there, private, public, whatever. Some people are outstanding, some people are mediocre and do what they need to do, but nothing more, and then some people are slackers. I mean, every professor at UMW is clearly in the outstanding category, but at other hypothetical universities, you would get some professors and admins who are rock stars. These people work hard and really want to excel at their careers, help students, and put out top-class research. There are others who do the job they're hired to do at a good level, and there are those who are less than stellar. At the end of the day, or the end of the night if you will, this looks like every place I've ever worked at in my pre-UMW life. In all the retail stores and sales jobs I've had, we've had this mix of people. For those of you who have jobs, or even in class, think about the people you work with, go to school with, or know. The federal government and state and local governments largely look like those places. One thing to note about the bureaucracy is that it mirrors the American population more so than Congress does. We get greater descriptive representation in the bureaucracy than we do from our elected officials. That is to say, you're more likely to speak to someone in the bureaucracy that looks like you than you are if you call a member of Congress. As of the publication of the book, the stats show that 30% of people working in the bureaucracy are ethnic minorities, and 45% are women. Clearly, we get greater diversity here than we do among our elected officials.